to Adventures in the Library. We're going to kick off this segment by looking at our notes and seeing where we were from last time. And what I decided to do is I'm going to start introducing a new section to this, a new section to Adventures in the Library. And this is how we're going to connect the internet to our library and look out and go and try to find various different sources out on the internet. So we're going to be adding in the internet as one of our resources, and to do that, our first challenge, what we're going to do is we're going to look out, we'll go down and look at the two names. We're going to do a search for Gregor Mendel and for Sir Francis Galton, and check it that and check out to see what we can actually find on them. And I think that would be an interesting search. And what happened, the reason for this is that a lot of times how a book references something tells you, one, when it was written and what they were thinking, what people were thinking at the time. And so to do this, I'm going to go where we left off last time. When I had written my notes here that we're looking at the DNA was listed not under its own DNA, but under nucleic acids and nucleotides. And so I'm going to go in there to look at that and see what we can find. See what this book actually has. Okay. And if the section is sufficiently large, I don't see any reason why it couldn't cover a couple segments. We don't have to go through an entire section all at once. We are doing this on a more leisurely pace. And the way I like to look at the work that we're doing here and the Adventures in the Library is rather like a large puzzle. And it basically our pieces that we're going to have to fit together are bits and pieces of information. This, as we're here, these are our pieces, and how we put the pieces together, more often that will tell us what our picture is going to look like. It will give us an idea of what the picture is going to look like. Now, because we can't know all the information, we're dealing with a situation that we will never see the full picture. We'll have a good approximation of things, but we will never have the entire, the complete understanding. So this is how we're doing that. I mean, this is what I used to do when I started in this area doing puzzles, and then I graduated from puzzles to basically this is what I call the Adventures in the Library, which is basically puzzle solving within the library. And there's actually an enormous amount of information that can actually be found in your average library. So it's not that there's a short amount of information. There's a huge amount out there, and that's part of the problem that we're going to be facing, is that there is so much information out there that it's going to take us some time, and here we go, to get through everything. And we're at nucleic acids and nucleotides, and I am going to want to bookmark this. So, I have an old deck, a whole bunch of cards here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these cards to use, and these cards will become bookmarks. So, in other words, you don't actually have to fill things out sometimes. You can reuse things. So I'm putting a bookmark here because nucleic acids and nucleotides is going to be something we're going to be coming back to, because we are talking about mental deficiency and mental defects in terms of this is where we've ended up in terms of the understanding of moron, idiot, and imbecile. That these conditions are considered to be genetically oriented, or at least in the larger sense, hereditary. Because heredity does not have to be genetically linked. It could simply there is from a psychological stance a means to pass on behavior from one generation to the next, although you haven't necessarily passed on without having to necessarily pass on a genetic defect. So that's what I'm trying to say. A genetic defect does not have to be present in order for a psychological disorder to be there. Now I'm going to use the term psychological disorder. We're going to have to go back and take a look at this. And I'm going to take a note on this new term. Psychological disorder. Remember I said the definition of psychology goes back to the Greek psychologia. And the psyche part, the psyche part of psychologia is Greek for the term soul. And the soul is not a physical part of the body. It stands outside the body in terms of its anatomy. It stands outside the body. It's not part of the body, even though it's integrated into the body. So we're going to take that particular approach with psychologia, but we understand that that issues with the psyche, issues with the psyche, and I'm going to use it. We're going to continue using the Greek psyche here. So that's sort of the convention that we're going to go with. Every time we're going to deal with something in psychology, we're going to deal with the psyche. So dealing with the psyche, we need to understand that the psyche can affect the body, and the body can affect the psyche. Now, when we look at nucleic acids and nucleotides, what we're understanding here is that we're looking at now the chemistry of the human body, and so this is sort of another thing that we have to look at and look into is the chemistry of the human body. This is sort of, and again, you can take this as far as you want. You don't have the sort of stop where we're starting. You can take this to a larger degree. And I've actually, in my professional work, doing chemistry, that's actually what I've been doing for a long time now. I've been doing it for more than 10 years, for more than a decade. I've been doing organic chemistry inside the human body, studying the various different interactions. What happens is that the interactions, the chemical interactions that you see in the lab is different from what actually occurs within the body within a non-laboratory. A laboratory environment is very clean and cut. There's and very well defined. That's what the whole point of a laboratory is to sort of define your parameters, I mean, in these things, and try to have a somewhat controlled environment. But the chemistry that occurs in the world around us does not necessarily occur in a controlled environment. It's in a dynamic environment, and while you can use your laboratory chemistry in order to get an idea of what's happening in the dynamic world, in a dynamic environment, it is not what is actually occurring in that in the study of chemistry in the dynamic environment. And this is true for physics as well, or any other science. All sciences have to be studied in a dynamic environment. You cannot simply simply say the lab results are what's going on in reality, or in terms, because the lab results aren't reality. They're simply an understanding or a portion of reality, and not being reality in the time. So I'm taking a bit of a note here. And notes you have to write. I'm doing this old school here because notes have to be really flexible, and sometimes as you're taking notes, you're going to modify things. And I'm just putting a little note here that we are now studying inside the nucleic acids. And nucleotides. And this will sort of give me a way to organize the notes. And then it also sort of could give us an idea of where we're going to go next with things. So I'm just putting a category in here that we're now studying under nucleotides, nucleic acids and nucleotides. As we're looking at this, we realized that we're now looking at the physical part of mental defects, of mental deficiencies, and we have to redefine mental deficiencies from the Sehev point of view as psychological disorders, or if you want to call it an illness of the Sehe, or a disease of the Sehe. So just the way the physical body can have disorders, disease, and illness, the Sehe can have the exact same thing. They can have illness, disease, and disorder. And once we understand this, we can start putting some of the observations together to sort of say, okay, yeah, this is indeed the case. So this is why we have to have the term here, psychological disorder, to understand this. And we now know that we're going into the chemistry, in terms of what we're doing specifically here. We're going into the chemistry of the human body. And we're looking through things as we read through it here. And it says here, it talks about the various types of components to RNA and DNA. And they basically boil down to carbohydrates. They have here, and it says here, a heterocycle hydrocarbon, this is in reference to nucleotides. And so they're saying it's a heterocyclic hydrocarbon radical, which is called the base, a pentose, and a orthophosphoric acid group. So in other words, we're going into basically this sort of gives you the idea of where we are in terms of our chemistry. We're in the chemistry of hydrocarbons, carbohydrates, and that specifically is organic chemistry. So there is your basic elementary chemistry, and then after that you have your organic chemistry. Elementary chemistry is your very basic understanding of chemistry, and in particularly looking at elemental compounds. With organic chemistry, you're looking at larger compounds and more complex compounds. And that's how you can get larger, what we call macromolecules, like RNA and DNA. And surprisingly, even though we're just getting into this, our time's up. 15 minutes has gone by already. Cool. So I'll see you next segment, and we'll continue on from here. I've got it bookmarked. I've got our notes taken down, and let's start chugging along.